Hi and good morning. I'm dressed to go out again, so I just came in from outside. It's a cold, kind of a rainy day today on the last day of February 2014. But I've been sharing some things with you for the last few days. I'm Bob Barron. I guess you probably know that, but just in case you haven't seen this before, that's who I am. But I've been sharing some ideas about writing. I wanted to just share a few more things before I start on my trip. I have a little traveling to do today. We talked about poetry and fiction writing and memoir stories. Really, they all go together, and that's why I said that in the book that I have here that I've been sharing with you also. But I have a couple ideas in my mind. When we talk about fiction, as I mentioned yesterday, I read part of a story that was part fiction, mostly fiction, but some parts were true. And I just wanted to show you something else in this particular book that's like that. The story in here is called The Dark Likes Me. It starts like this. It's dark again. I'm cold, hungry. Grandma pinched me, made my arms bleed. And then she pushed me down the steps into the basement, and she locked the door. Now that's a fiction part. But then this part is not. Most of the time, she keeps me down in the basement. There's a pile of old clothes I sleep on and a toilet in the corner. Now, there's two facts there. The pile of old clothes is not really a true part, but the fact that there's a toilet in the basement, yes, because I'm talking about the very basement in the house I grew up in Chicago. And that house was built in 1884. It's a Victorian, in a time when there weren't bathrooms. And so when Dad put a bathroom in our house, the first thing he did was put a toilet in the basement because that was the easiest thing to do, at least expensive, no doubt, But that toilet was always down there. And then I tell something else that's truth. I said, I can just reach over the top of a big washing tub to wash off my face and hands. Now, the story is about a little boy that was, I guess you'd say, not really treated very well, locked up and kept away. But this part about the fact that he can just reach over the top of a big washing tub to wash off his face and hands, well, I'm talking about myself, because when I was a child, there were 6 in the family, and everybody trying to get ready for work and school at the same time. And so sometimes, me being the little one, I would go down to the basement and wash off my face, get ready for it. Now, I didn't take off my shoes and walk barefoot on the concrete like this kid did, but I wanted to show you that sometimes we can use facts which are so, I believe, powerful, good images in our writing, and I did that. This story, The Dark Likes Me, is a fiction based on, it's really a composite and different things I put together to make an interesting story, but some of the facts in there, like this one about that basement, are true. And I will tell you this too, if you read this book, there's another story in here where I use our basement in that story, because that basement in my childhood was very, very, very powerful for me. I was scared to be down. That's the truth of it. Okay. So that's the first thing about fiction, that sometimes contains real, realities, real facts. Something else. I had written a piece, I thought it was what we call a piece of, prose piece, just sentences and paragraphs, and then a teacher looked at it. I got the wrong page though, forgive me, hold on. A teacher looked at it and said, maybe you've actually written poetry here, Bob. And so I looked at this thing and kind of rearranged a little bit and chopped out a little bit, and here's what came up. And I think it's poetry, but you can decide. It's called Before Leaving Berkeley. I came home and walked into my darkened house. Halfway through the hallway, the exquisite light of the city at night caught my eyes. The city I'm talking about, of course, is San Francisco, because Berkeley is right across the bay from San Francisco. From my kitchen window, houses and apartments climb all the way down to the bay, lights and windows like gems in the black night. From my front window, the sight tugs me back through 30 years of full moons and woods and mountains and hopes. Tonight the moon is almost full. Full on Tuesday, I tell myself. Such a joy to see it come over the hill. A joy of promise in my heart. 30 miles of city lights and 30 years of Berkeley time, pulling me, reminding me, my heart is here, my soul is here, my past is here. Where is my future? So that's a poem that came out of a little piece of prose writing. I did spend 30 years in Berkeley, and then where is my future? Well, my future, actually, that was 1990, and the next year, 1991, my future was at the Grand Canyon National Park as a park ranger, and I didn't know that. But so that's how a piece of prose came to turn into a piece of poetry. Someone looked at it and gave me an idea. I've done that with a lot of what I've written. You have something you've written, you share it with either family or friends or somebody else, a teacher, and they give you a couple of pointers.30 you should do this, or just something, just a suggestion, never telling you what to do about it. But in this book, I think I've got 32 or 35 individual pieces. There are stories and memoirs and poems, and 4 fictions, as I mentioned, I think yesterday. And here's the way this thing starts. I want to show you how I started this particular book. Where does the story begin? Now, that was not an original idea with me. I saw that somewhere. I said, gee, I kind of like that. So I used that as my opening piece here. Where does the story begin? Life parts are what I call stories about parts of life. Experiences we live through, childhood, jobs, friendships, army, college, all of it. These little stories, some look like dinky poems, are based on what I have seen and done in my life. But some have been fictionalized, names changed, events rearranged to protect the privacy of people and family still with us. Why share this stuff? Well, maybe there's something here worth sharing. I think that's your call, but for me, the writing down of all this has helped me see how all the parts fit together, even when I thought they didn't. The stories are not shared in any chronological order, but in a way that seems to work. At least from my perspective, I hope it works for you. Now, if you ever look at this book, you'll see it's not chronological at all. In other words, I start with a little thing about the backyard, which I shared with you a couple of days ago, and then we have the dark likes me. Now, how did I come up with this particular order? Well, I put all these pieces on a big table we have in our dining room, and looked at it, and arranged it in a certain way, and thought about it, and read parts of it, and rearranged it again, and again, and again, until I finally came up with a way I thought, yeah, this is good. I want some stuff in the beginning to kind of help people understand where we're going with this, and then pulling you in, this backyard piece based on this little boy's picture on the front cover. That's me as a little kid, and then the darker piece about the boy who was locked in a basement for so long and then came out and had a pretty good life after that. So that's how I did all the arrangements. After that first little thing about where does the story begin, and I think, frankly, my story, maybe anyone's story, starts in the home. And that's where your life comes from, I think. That's where my life came, for sure, your parents and your family. But then I put on the second page here, some life parts. When I was young, I was a firefighter. More recently, I've been a park ranger. In between those jobs, I was a soldier, a social worker, a teacher. I sold ice cream when I was 14 and when I was 40. In the empty spaces, I've hiked and sung and dreamed. And remember, home is where the story begins. Life parts. Memories, fiction, poems are all life parts. That's the way I see it. We live through life and we go through a lot of stuff, and I've told you some of the jobs I've been through, and I've written about that. But it just made sense to me to realize, oh, now I kind of get it. Here I am all these years later, and I've been a teacher, elementary school and a teacher in college, and a park ranger, and it all fits together because one thing seems to help you go to the next. Sometimes it pulls you back a little bit, but that's okay. I enjoy the writing, and I believe if you talk to writers, whomever they are, we like what we write. Kind of have to, and you can't let somebody else say, no, not really. I mean, you want other people to read it, of course, but I think that you'll find most writers like their own writing. So here's what I would say. Try it yourself. You have ideas. I just talked to a friend yesterday. He said, no, he doesn't have much to write about. I said, really? Really? I mean, and the guy is almost as old as I am. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff you've been through. So just think about it. You might enjoy it. I hope you do. I'm going to share something else about what the way I think about things, perhaps a little more about writing, maybe tomorrow or the next day. But as always, thanks for looking. Take care. Bye-bye.